you listen to the critics, if you listen to your own doubts and call them reasons, you may never find the drive to go back to school. But a little change in direction, a new perspective, and the right program may make your successful new path a reality. The Accelerated Degree Program at Albright College. Start your degree or complete your degree one night a week in as little as 2 years. Albright College, a different way of thinking.
Good evening, and welcome to the Albright Scholar for July 2016. I'm John Pankratz. I teach history at Albright, and each month it's my privilege to welcome BCTV viewers and residents of Greater Reading to take a glimpse inside our learning community up here on North 13th Street, to look at the work being done by teachers and students, and to think about its impact on all of us. Well, as I've told you before, Albright is hopping during the summer, and one of the prime forms of activity are what we call ACRES, Albright Creative Research Experiences. These are exercises in teamwork. A student who's really interested in a subject, a professor who's equally interested in that subject, join forces to collaborate on some sort of research project. And this year there are, 20-some different teams at work in chemistry, in psychology, in advertising, in history, in graphic design, a whole range of fields. One of the reasons we have so many people this year is because a generous grant from the Andrew Mellon Foundation has enabled us to expand research in the humanities. And I'm here tonight as one of the beneficiaries and with my co-beneficiary of that generosity. I'm here with Angela Kramer, who's a rising senior honor student in communications and photography. And welcome, Angela.
Welcome. Good evening.
And we're, for the second year, working on a project that had its, origins about 11 years ago now.
Yes.
An exercise in civic photography that I undertook called the Faces of Reading Project. And last summer, and we'll talk a little bit about what we did last summer, we photographed close to 700 faces of Reading. And then this summer we're trying to put that into physical, enjoyable form for our fellow citizens and for the larger community. Angela, you were on the show just at the beginning of this project last summer, right?
Yes,
in
it's
June
grown a lot since
2015. So what have we done in the intervening year?
Well, we've done a lot of detective work. We met hundreds of people, as John said. One of my big roles was to find, so in the first poster, which you'll see here, from 10 years ago.
Oh yeah, we're flanked by our two creations, yeah.
That was done 10 years ago, so that is 1,026 people throughout the city of Reading. And then now today, we have our new poster. And that I had to search for all of those 1,026 people, so we really saw the passage of time. A lot of people had passed away, a lot of people were born, a lot of people have passed away, and a lot of people have even moved, so we tracked everyone down. And I did a little bit of interviewing them as well. So 2 questions that the faces were asked 10 years ago was, what do you see in Reading, and what does Reading see in you? So this time, 10 years now, they got to answer the same questions, and we had nearly 200 returning faces, so that was pretty nice as well. So the nearly 200 people that were in the first project were here 10 years later in Faces of Reading Plus 10, and this is our new poster. And you can see as they zoom up as on it, the faces that are tinted with the red, those are returning faces, so they were in the project both 10 years ago and today.
So if you get a hold of the new poster and have the old poster already, you can go back and see them
collection.
10 years earlier. Very often people will ask, did you get all 1,000 to come back? And in some ways that was an unrealistic hope. And our return rate was, I guess, about 20%.
Which is still pretty good.
If you rounded it out. And I think it's a true response. That is, people do pass away. people do move on, and so a lot of these people, even in 2005, were sort of passing through Reading, and were moving on to other locations. I think some people passed on in terms of their thinking as well. So some people happened to participate 10 years ago and said, oh, maybe not. Maybe I won't do it this year. Or maybe I'll get around to it by August or something, and then it was too late.
Yes, that time
And
came
even
along.
when we gave them a second chance in September,
Yes.
it might have been too late then as well. I think people might be more private about their lives. I think the internet has certainly developed
Yeah,
a
seeing
great
that
deal over the last
transition over
10
time.
years, and so some people might be a little bit wary of too much exposure in social media and that sort of thing. So I think that 20% return rate is itself kind of a historical fact.
Yes.
that I'm fascinated by. Our first accomplishment of this summer, we're hoping to do three things. We wanted to create a follow-up poster, and we've done that, and that's printed and ready. We wanted to develop the possibility of a physical exhibition of the photographs. And so we're going to begin conversations and negotiations with various venues in town to see who would be interested in mounting an exhibition of the photographs, sort of full size in good quality prints. And I think all of our faces benefit from close scrutiny.
Yes.
And then the other thing we hope to do is to design a book that would then permanently commemorate the Faces of Reading project, and certainly this comparison between 2005 and 2015. So we're 1/3 of the way there, and it's mid-July. Angela, you had some particular responsibility in working on the poster. Tell us a little bit about
Sure.
what you were
So I learned a lot about InDesign in the program to design it. It also, we had to think in terms of design, how are we going to display all of these faces? So there's over 600 faces here on this poster. One of the big things that we thought of was to keep it very democratic, and it's basically goes in alphabetical order, so there's no hierarchy to the poster, as was with the whole project.
But there are no names mentioned, so
Yes.
you can. So if you know where
So
you
to us,
fall in the alphabet, you might be able to.
It makes it easy to find yourself and not stalk others down, we could say,
Right.
because we're not printing your name out there. But that way, everyone's equal. And our tagline up at the top, seeing each of us as an individual, seeing all of us as a community, that's sort of what we designed as our tagline and our motto for the project to go along with. So it fits in with that very well. And as I said, the red there that depicts any of our returning faces. So they were in the project before. And as for the bigger pictures versus the smaller pictures, there's no special weight given to them. The bigger pictures aren't people that we like more. It's just pictures that we enjoyed aesthetically and that we really want to show an accurate depiction of the city of Reading. So that's what we get going there.
Yeah. We should say that the original poster was designed by Heidi Ekman, who's in the Department of College Relations at Albright. And she did a fabulous job creating this sort of icon of the city. And she is still at Albright and still our colleague. And so as we approached her for advice, she was very eager to be hands-on with this, and so she did a lot of work in terms of the layout of the grid and everything like that. And then, Angela, you sort of worked at her elbow, importing the individual pictures. And then you and I did a lot of prep work of the individual pictures, tinting them just the right shade of red, and making sure it took several weeks actually to
Yes.
to do that, and then to make sure that we didn't forget anyone.
Yes,
And we
that was
didn't.
important.
As Angela suggested, one of the real watchwords of the project has been inclusion. So both inclusion in terms of the people who live in the city. We gave everybody a chance last year to come on downtown and participate, and we wanted the overall representation to look like the city, to sort of feel like the city. And I think we've accomplished that diversity, and I think we've accomplished that inclusion. And so everybody we photographed last year is on the poster.
Yes, which that's the best part, so.
No. Let's say a little bit as well about that motto. Seeing each of us as an individual, seeing all of us as a community. There's a little bit of a paradox there.
Yes.
And it's I think a classic American paradox. Rugged individualism is one of those American values that gets instilled in us through all sorts of cultural inputs. And we value that independence and that individualism. Community, as we know this year, as we've known in American history, is a harder feeling, a harder bond to generate. We come from lots of different places, and what are we really doing here together? What sense does it make? And I wanted to both pay respect to the individualism of people's lives. I wanted to treat them as an individual sitter, to look at their faces, to look at what's going on with their personality, to evoke a kind of feeling about that one person. But then assembling them together, either in the poster or in an exhibit, I wanted all of us to have a chance to see all these individuals side by side, cheek to cheek, as part of the same really diverse community. And in some ways it's an optical illusion. There are people side by side on the poster who might not hang out together very much in Reading itself. But they are in this sort of imagined community that we've created. Mm-hmm. And it may be that, you know, that imagined community is a guide or a pathway to more genuine bonds in the future.
Yes, and I'd say when we had our little pop-up studio, we got a lot of people that came to visit, kind of had that effect, and would even realize, hey, I recognize that person, even though they don't know who they are. I always pass them down on Penn Street, so that was good that we had that. It was important.
Yeah. You learned a lot about some of these individual sitters, didn't you? And I know when you've talked about this project, both at Albright, and then you also went off to the National Conference for Undergraduate Research in Asheville, North Carolina.
Yep.
Yeah, you talked about some of those stories there as well.
Yes, that was interesting. So yeah, one of the big things with this project was that I kind of did like a little interview. Since I'm a communications, public relations, and advertising major, I could kind of sit down with the person and kind of hear their story, their thoughts about Reading, and then just kind of jotted down some notes once they went to get their picture taken by John here. And that was just really interesting. I heard a lot of some people that even told me their whole life story, and I just met them in a minute, and then I know everything about them. So it was really interesting, and to see kind of collectively bring that all together. So with the book, that's really something that we hope to achieve, kind of share that story and what they've gone through, because it really does, the individual stories bring us all together, because we all go through things, both good and bad, and we've heard both of those sides of the stories from our faces. So that's kind of what we have going here in terms of getting the word out there, of sharing their stories and publishing the book.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I know that in between the original faces of Reading and the modern one, there's a small town in New York State that also had a project called Humans of New York, which has of course become an internet phenomenon and a published book as well. And in all of those cases, there's always a story that goes with the image, and people are always viewed in context. And I know you're really drawn to that sort of model of what personal disclosure or the person in context. Mm-hmm. And so you'll have some little vignettes, essays, descriptions of people that can be matched up in that way.
Yes, and you can find little, tastings of that on our Facebook and our Instagram as well. So Faces of Reading +10, you can see some of our stories. And we really hope with the book to do some follow-up interviews with some of the very interesting faces that I talk to, and kind of get more of their stories, because I learned that they're interesting just from 5 minutes of talking to them. So imagine what 30-minute sit-down conversation could really do. So that's what we're hoping to do with the book as well.
At the same time, I think probably everybody is interesting, whether we know it or
Yes.
not, or whether we had the opportunity to discover it or not, and whether they were forthcoming in confessions about their lives. And so there will be a kind of anonymity to the exhibit as well, so that we're not if somebody said something really painful and difficult and doesn't want that identified with their face, we're not going to match those up. By the same token, I think painful and difficult things have happened in the last 10 years in a lot of lives. And so we'll allow those statements and those observations to be there, but maybe just floating on their own, and then allow people to look at the faces and say, I wonder what this person's gone through. So I think we'll both respect privacy, but also have the sense that human experiences are broadly shared. They're not purely individual or purely idiosyncratic, but they're part of the human family. So we'll see. I'm sort of in the essay mode. You're in the vignette mode,
Yes.
and there's going to be room. That's why we're drawn to a book, because there's room in that kind of publication to have both points of view coexisting at the same time. We printed 500 copies of the poster, and we were enabled to do that because of the generous grant that we received last summer from the Berks County Community Foundation, a grant that was intended to promote arts on Penn Street.
Yes.
And it was a fabulous idea, and various organizations were awarded monies, and Albright, through our project, was awarded money to put some form of the arts on Penn Street. And what we were able to do was rent a space at 645 Penn Street to set up our pop-up studio last summer. And advertise that and promote that and project it on through the windows of that facility. But then we did have some monies remaining, and we devoted that to the printing of the poster. So this week we're going to go downtown, and we're going to go to some of the venues where we were, and some of the venues where employees or officers or members of different organizations we're supportive, and we're going to give each of those organizations a poster.
Yes, I'm looking forward to seeing all their faces again.
A little bit of a reunion
Yeah.
as well. But what if somebody wanted to get one for himself or herself?
Well, we will be, I guess, selling them, so you could say. I wouldn't say we have a set value to them, but we would say around $10 or so. All of the donations that we are getting for the posters will be going directly towards the exhibition space and the publishing of the book.
We didn't print enough to
Yes.
give them away for free to everyone.
Yeah, that would
So,
be.
and I sort of wish we had, but we didn't.
If only we could do that.
But the thought is that we really do want there to be an exhibit, and there will be
Yes.
costs entailed in that. And so any donation that people make in obtaining a poster will be devoted to mounting that exhibit. So. And how will they find us?
Well, I guess through Facebook and social media as of now. We're looking to get a spot, sell the posters at Goggle Works, so that's in the works yet, though. And we'll
Are you going to be at the
walking
farmers
down
market?
Penn Street. Yes, hopefully at the Penn Street Farmers Market, which is every Thursday from 10 to 2. So hopefully you'll find me walking around there as well. But if you tune into our social media, we'll put updates on there once we have everything solidified and all the details.
As I say, part of the hope, I think, is to have these available at the Goggle Works, perhaps at the Albright bookstores
Yes.
as well. But we, don't hold us to that,
Yeah,
because
no
we haven't
promises yet.
we haven't yet actually had those conversations. So that's one of our projects for this week as well. But we expect to see them sort of side by side in various offices, perhaps here at BCTV as well.
They do have the first one and now the second one, so.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do. What else shall we say?
No.
It's in some ways this is an atypical acre project. In some ways, it's typical.
Yes.
It's atypical in that it's not a single discipline that's being represented, right? It's not just history, it's not just photography, it's not just social research, it's not just public relations. It's a sort of a mix of,
Yes, it's very interdisciplinary.
of all of those. But at the same time, it's typical in that it requires the talents of both the teacher and the student to make the thing work.
Yes.
That it can't be a goal that's simply accomplished by one person, or one person and a helper. You're on the poster as the collaborator, and we would not have had the faces that we have. We would not have the relationships that we formed with these people if you hadn't been part of the project, right? I think.
I suppose
I
not.
think, and I think that's the case with my colleagues in other fields as well. It's a chance that Albright gives to students to be really deeply engaged with a subject matter, with a problem, with a discipline, but also be really deeply engaged with a collaborator. Mm-hmm. And I think in so many fields, the ability not only to generate ideas on your own, but to develop ideas in tandem is both a challenge and an opportunity. So thanks for sharing that opportunity and that challenge with me, both last summer
Thank you.
and this summer as well.
Yes, you've been stuck with me a while now.
Yeah. And we have something to show for it.
Yes.
As
They're
well.
all paid off.
Good. Well, so we'll see many of you interested in Faces of Reading on social media and perhaps downtown in the coming weeks. Mm-hmm. We'll see many of you as well next month on another edition of the Albright Scholar, where I'll be featuring some of our other acre research teams. So enjoy the rest of the month of July, and we'll see you in August. Thanks so much. Good night.
If you listen to the critics, if you listen to your own doubts and call them reasons, you may never find the drive to go back to school. But a little change in direction, a new perspective, and the right program may make your successful new path a reality. The Accelerated Degree Program at Albright College. Start your degree or complete your degree one night a week in as little as 2 years. Albright College, a different way of thinking.